Hi, hello everybody. We keep on moving ahead in this financial and insurance track at Enterprise Agility Europe conference. And I would like to thank you, all of you, for being here today with us, of course. And also, I would like to make a brief introduction to Javier Ferrer, okay? Javier Ferrer is the head of the Agile Center of Excellence at National Nederlanden here in Spain. You all know that National Nederlanden is a Dutch insurance company, very well known worldwide, and they have started the Agile initiative here in Spain around 1.5 or 2 years ago, and he's gonna talk about portfolio and program management. And we hope that you find this presentation of your interest. Thank you, and it's your turn. Thank you.
Hello everyone. Yes. So, just better. A brief introduction on the presentation. I'm gonna focus on portfolio and program management, but before touching those points, I'm going to give you a brief introduction of the company we are, how was our transformation journey toward agility, and then we'll get into more specific details of portfolio and program management. I just want to say that regarding how we approach lean, agile transformations, I think we're kind of following a pragmatic approach. There are lots of frameworks in the market, there are lots of methods, but in the end, it's about your company, it's about your context, it's about picking up the right frameworks that you think that fit better to your context, and also adapting them. So we are, I think, quite pragmatic in that approach. And probably what I'm going to show you now, it's our journey. It doesn't mean it's perfect, it's not. It's a tough process, and I hope you can get some insights on our process, because in the end you might be able to pick up some points for your company. But having said that, our journey probably will be completely different from your journey. The way we do it in Spain probably is going to be different to the way they do it in another business unit, even in the same company. So what I'm saying is that even if we choose the same frameworks, the adaptation to your local context, even being the same multinational, it's going to be different, because you will have cultural issues, organizational issues. So in the end, you have to really tailor whatever you do to your context. I think that's the overarching message to start. So just take this, our journey. It's just an example. And in the end, you will have to tweak and follow your approaches. So the first thing, I'm going to just give you a brief introduction about the company, just to understand the context of where we started this journey and how we started applying methods. So National Nederlanden, as you saw yesterday, probably it's a company which is part of the NN Group, has a long history, so over 100 years. In Spain for several years, I think most of the people thought we were ING, like the bank. We were part of the ING Group, but still we are the insurance company. Some years ago, there was a spin-off, so ING as a bank, it's one company. National Nederlanden is an insurance company. They are both Dutch, but from 2014, they are kind of separate. Yeah, still we work quite a lot together, but just for you to understand from the history, long history, where we come from, as a group, we are in 18 countries, so it's mostly Europe and Japan. Insurance operates in several markets, and you see the amount of employees, so it's over 14,000, and a lot of customers. If we go to Spain, you will see that, okay, we are talking about, it's a small, relatively a smaller company in terms of customers, but it's about 800,000 customers, what we're talking about here in Spain, and you can see more or less the assets under management. Those figures, for me, it's always tough to really relate to our own reality, but still, that's more or less the size of the portfolio. In terms of distribution in Spain, basically we have retail, That means that we have our own sales force. They go and sell products around the whole territory. So there are 40 plus branches, franchises, over 2,000 agents, and that's one distribution channel. We also work in with banks, so especially with ING. So ING distributes some of our products. And there's another also division, which is employee benefits, which is kind of tackling big corporate clients. So we sell insurance products and solutions to corporate clients. So that's more or less how we sell the distribution channels. And we also have online. So we also sell things online. In terms of NPS, employee engagement, I think customers are kind of happy if you look at the numbers. So in that sense, we start from when we started all this process from a good point, and employee engagement is very high. So we're talking about a company that you can see all the awards, etc. But in terms of employee engagement, it's quite high. That means that in our particular case, the culture in the company kind of helped the process. It's a journey and it's tough, but that's more or less the starting point, which is also on the other side, you have to see that, okay, all these changes, you have to be careful not to kind of decrease all these metrics. So this is just a brief, quick overview of the context of the company, just to get you an understanding of where we started. And yesterday, regarding transformations, I'm going to be explaining our journey very briefly, so you can understand, first you understand more or less the industry and the company, high level, and now I'm going to try to explain the transformation itself, how we kind of did it, for you to understand the organizational model we are using, because that also conditions the frameworks we use or how we operate. So this started like 1 year and a half ago, and the whole thing was about, okay, how can we link, in the end, a strategy to execution and that we deliver? Because historically, in the past, even using traditional frameworks, we were, at least in Spain, quite good in execution. We deliver, even using waterfall practices, over 85% of our projects on time. So we had a very strong execution practice, but still, how you link the whole thing from strategy to execution, from strategy to team, that was more or less the starting point for making sure that whatever we do, it's working on that direction. So as I mentioned before, we use different frameworks. It might work in our case. You might use another framework in other companies. But in the end, high level, it's like at team level, we use Scrum and Kanban. So Scrum, let's say, for teams that are working more on things called projects or change, and Kanban more for run teams. And then for scaling, it's a combination of the Spotify model. So we have tribes and chapters. So that's kind of the way we organize ourselves. It was built around or inspired by the Spotify model. And in terms of scaling, as a method, we borrow some practices, for those who know, from SAFe. It doesn't mean we follow it. It's just we borrow some practices. So in the end, it's a combination of those methods that you will see reflected in how we transform. So as I mentioned before, this is a journey. So you have to go there, and it's not an easy path. And the point is that once you reach there, it doesn't mean you've finished. It's that you kind of are transformed. And from there, you have to improve and improve and improve. So it's a full journey. And in the end, high level, what you need to, this is kind of process for scaling Agile that we use internally, but you need some kind of team who is kind of driving the transformation. You need to have a vision for the transformation. You have to communicate to everybody. You have to create some kind of leading teams of people that will kind of show by example that this is feasible. And then you have to go and build more teams, scale, engage everybody. So it's a journey and an interesting one. So how we approach this journey? We created something that we call the Agile Transformation Office. So this was a core team of people that were kind of driving the transformation. Yeah. In the end, and this is what we did. Probably, depending on the company, you will have to pick up other functions. But We reckon that, okay, you need some kind of board level involvement. So you have that level in the transformation office. That means in our case, we have the CEO in person, the CTO, which is kind of IT transformation, and HR. So those people were part of the team. And then you had people from PMO, Agile Center of Excellence, so more oriented to, let's say, methods execution, HR, that means people management, performance management, culture at company level. And okay, we are an insurance company, so being an insurance company means that risk management, it's also a key thing. Probably in other sectors, maybe it's another function. But in an insurance company, risk management, it's key. So in the transformation, basically, these guys are trying to make sure that we don't break things in the process. And then you have communication, because as you will see later on, I mean, communicating, it's key. And you have to send the message, and 1 time, 2 times, 20 times, and still, it's not enough. So communication is part of the process. You have to communicate all the time along the way. So what was more or less the focus of this team? Okay, working on the organizational design. That means, okay, we have the strategy for the company, how we can create something which is a new organizational structure that can link to that strategy and execute. Also people and culture. I mean, you're saying, okay, we're going to change the company somehow, the structure, you're going to create new teams, they will be working in a different way of working. So making sure that you tackle processes regarding people, it's also key. Methods and tools. I mean, I'm not going to get into detail because, you know, considering the audience, you know about all these kind of frameworks, etc. So, I mean, implementing, rolling out Scrum, Kanban, scaling, etc. means you need some people to drive this process. And also, we also see, in these days, measurements. You need metrics. So it means tooling. You need to implement new tooling to be able to measure all these things. Risk management, as I mentioned before, as a part of the insurance company, and communication. So that's more or less the scope of this team, which was the core, just to drive the process. And through the process, in the end, we said, okay, why do we want to do this? Because in the end, it's like, if you are fine as you are, and if you are delivering on execution quite well, so, okay, why are you doing this? Okay, so more customer focus, I think that's a key one. Employee engagement, in the end, okay, you can have a happy scores in employee engagement, as you saw before, but why not improve them? And we need BI empowerment. So people that have more room for deciding how to approach work tend to be more empowered than in an environment where you have a boss telling them you have to do this, you have to do that. And then speed of delivery. So, I mean, this probably, you know, dependencies, a prioritization, minimum viable product, all these type of things. So how you deliver better, iteratively, making more the product more aligned with your customers. And also the fact that, you know, we are not alone in the world. So you have companies that will work as partners, and they are also working in Agile. So in the end, little by little, this is going to be the new way of working. In some years' time, everybody or many companies will be doing this. So it will not be any longer something new, but just the new way of working. And you have to, when you are working with others, you have to kind of connect. And also competition. I mean, insurance, finance. You saw examples before. Many companies in the insurance and finance industry, they're kind of transforming. So just to keep up the pace with them, you have to do this. And also, you had some kind of indicators like, okay, what do you want to improve? In the end, those indicators, high-level leading indicators, how we measure the success of this transformation. So, okay, employee engagement, how we can reduce the product time to market, etc. So this was more or less the framework, okay, of how to approach this. And also with, as you can see below, with a learn and adapt approach. I mean, there's not a book you can follow. I mean, this is not you go to Amazon, buy a book, how to transform a company, step 1, step 2, step 3. No, you will do things, some things will work, some others will not, and in the process you have to really see, inspect, adapt, and see how you move on. So, in the end, what we got? We have tribes and run. So basically what you see in this side, the tribes, it's what we kind of call the change organization. So that's Change organization means people working on change. They also deliver services. And run normally are more traditional departments or cross that they are not so, let's say, focused on a piece part of a strategy. So for example, HR. HR is working across the company. Or finance. Finance, it's a kind of support function in our case. So those are run departments. And what we said is, okay, I mean, a tribe, it's something that has to deliver a part of the strategy of the company, but end to end. That means that it's not only about building a new product, but also servicing the product. Because in the end, you can improve the time to market. You can sell the product in 5 months, 4 months, whatever, but if the service is poor, that goes against the customers. So if you define something that has to make customers happy, you have to focus on changing things, maintaining things, and giving a good service. So one of the things that if you follow this approach or if you define a structure, you have to think about, okay, what type of construct I'm going to build that can link to services, to products. And in this process, I mean, we had something that we call lenses, but in the end, it's about, okay, you can say, I'm going to build my structure aligned with products or around channels, around whatever. I mean, depending on how you want to focus your delivery, you might end up with tribes that are kind of aligned with channels or aligned with products or aligned with market segments. I mean, it's up to you in the end. So the whole concept of a tribe, it's a group of people that's working on executing a part of the strategy, that they have KPIs that they have to deliver, and they have a group of teams which are change, like Scrum teams, but run teams. So these green teams here, they can be inside the tribe, so you can have run inside or outside the tribes. Run inside the tribes, it's run that is kind of linked to the mission of the tribe. Run outside a tribe, it's run that is kind of cross, supporting all the company. So, and then you have chapters, because, you know, if you're familiar with the Spotify model, in the end, chapters means that you might have multidisciplinary teams, but you have people with different skills. So you have to make sure that you develop those people. So you kind of end up with a kind of horizontal structure of chapters that's where people belong. So as an employee, you belong to a chapter. There's a chapter lead, and that person is in charge of basically making sure that you develop, that you maybe are assigned to one team, and then after a year or two, you kind of move to another team, but you still belong to a chapter. So, and that's also a mindset change from a leadership perspective, from I'm managing my people to I'm trying to develop my people. So that's another HR dimension. And those are some tribe principles we use to design the tribes. So when we were thinking about, okay, what should be the best tribe structure for our company, we said, okay, tribes have to be responsible, they have to have customer-centric KPIs, and there should be no overlap. So if you divide the whole strategy in pieces, there should not be, ideally, many overlaps, because then you have conflicts. Yeah. They also should have a stability. So a tribe, it's, you have stable teams as a team. Then a tribe should also be stable. You cannot create a tribe and 6 months later another one. So also in terms of size, in the end, a tribe is just a team of teams. Yeah, so it's a collection of teams, and that team of teams, to be able to be manageable, you have to more or less move your size in that range. So more than 150 people, it's tough to manage. So probably that's another dimension you have to consider when splitting the organization. And also that if you take the strategy, you kind of deliver it by the tribe. So make sure that there's not something missing that nobody takes care of. And also that in the end, you're going to have several tribes. So you should not have one tribe that is 10 times bigger than the other, because they should be kind of, all of them, they're not going to be same, but kind of, comparable. And also that, it's not like you take the organization, you turn upside down or left, right, and you end up with a new structure, because in the end, you're not changing anything. So, but also the fact that you don't need a massive investment to launch. So try to find the balance between changing the company, but not having to invest a massive amount of money. And this was the process to defining what would be the structure. So this process was done by the Agile Transformation Office, but in the end, to make sure that you get a right buy-in, we did involve all the company top X amount of people, so basically directors and managers. So every once in a while, every company, they have offsites. So in these offsites, we use these offsites as part of this process. So making sure like, okay, guys, if this is a strategy, how do you think we should build up the tribes considering these principles? So we involve the people to also get their input. In the end, to also, make them part of the process. Like in the end, you end up with a company that is not like, guys, this is the new company. That's it. No, you've been through the process. And teams. So we have multidisciplinary teams, which are business and IT. That means we don't have only IT developers. We have marketeers, we have pricing actuaries, we have people from operations, we have product development people in the teams. The whole aim of having multidisciplinary agile teams is that you can deliver by your own to try to achieve the maximum level of independence per team. In the end, once you have a clear structure of, okay, these are the tribes, then you have to see, okay, how many teams do I need to deliver? How many people, what type of skills, what type of products they're going to deliver, and for those products, what type of skills. And also considering like when you build this, you are always trying to minimize dependencies. If you make sure that, and it's impossible to eliminate dependencies, but you have to have this in mind. Also, part of the process is mapping. You have a company, there are lots of apps, lots of processes, lots of platforms, etc. But when you change everything, you have to think about, okay, who owns what? We said tribes have to deliver a strategy, but in the end, teams have to deliver change. So, as we said, there should not be any part of the strategy that is kind of missing and nobody takes care of it. So the same thing should be done at, let's say, a lower level. So who's going to run, who's going to maintain, who's the owner of this process? And this is an exercise that it's a good exercise, it's complex. And in the end, it's okay. What's the purpose of that? Making sure that you know who does what, which sounds simple, but when the company is bigger, you might say, okay, who is in charge of touching this process? And if you have two agile teams changing the login, then maybe you have an issue. So who's the owner of that? And for the running and for the features we'll say later on, we'll see, but for changes, in the end, it's who does change what, or who does maintain what. It's based on this. And you need clarity on this, because otherwise it's going to be chaotic. So that's also part of the process of how you assign responsibilities to teams. And then we have run teams. These teams are less multidisciplinary. In the end, there are teams in departments. So let's say you have an accounting team. That's one Kanban team. Let's say you have an operations team. That's an operations team. So it's more linked to process. And these people can be in the tribes or outside the tribes. In the end, it's more process-oriented, and for those teams who are using Kanban. And then, when you scale, you have to see how you link all of this. Yeah. Part of the change, it's important training. So, as I mentioned before, we have the change organization, the run organization. So it's like you have to train a lot of people. So what's Agile? What are the frameworks? What is this? Specific training for roles. How do we train POs? How do we train squads? How do we train everybody? So you have to do a lot of, because in the end it's a lot of language, new language, and you have to also do it pragmatical. So I will later show our approach to this and to coaching. And for us, it works. So it's just our experience. But yeah, you have to really tailor the training to people. And for people to understand how this applies to me, the closer you make it to their reality, so the more you know their reality, the more they will understand it. So the less you rely on external training, like, sometimes you need to rely on it to build some kind of capabilities. But if you can build a team of people from the company, that knows the people, that knows the frameworks, and you use those people to train the company, it's much more powerful than having external people, because they might be a super expert on something, and sometimes you need them at the beginning, but they don't know the company. And sometimes, tailoring the message, when you say, according to this methodology, according to this framework, this is blah, 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 but in your daily life, this means that you have to touch here, here, here. People will understand it more than, okay, just some kind of theoretical construct. And also communication. So as you mentioned before, part of the company was communicating. So our communications department was sending emails, newsletters, events, town halls, etc. So a massive amount of work on communication. Why are we doing this? What is agility? What is Kanban? And you get, that's number 8. You have number 9, number 10, number 11. So every once in a while, boom, email or town hall. So communicating, it's a lot of work. And I think you should not forget communication, because sometimes people might approach transformations like, okay, we do the methods, we do the tooling. But communicating is key, because otherwise people will not follow. And then I move on to the next part, which is about our coaching approach. We have something called the Agile Center of Excellence. What is the Agile Center of Excellence? So it's a set of people that basically support this. Because in the end, you need people that drive this. It's not going to happen by default. And if you have an Agile Center of Excellence, or if you're going to create one, you have to think about, okay, what type of people should I put in there? What type of values should they have, or characteristics? So this is something we believe are kind of a set of values about these people. That means that you need to put people that understand servant leadership. You know, command and control people, and you have them, will not work. Some people might be used to command and control, and they will transition towards servant leadership. Others, they will not. So you need to understand that to be able to coach, you need to be able to listen. You need to be able to build trust, because in the end, if people don't trust you, they will not believe you. And you have to be also passionate about this. I mean, lean, agile, because this is all new and it's never ending. So there will be always new frameworks, new conferences, new congresses, and you need to learn. And you need to like learning. I mean, if you are the type of person that, okay, you know, I've been 20 years in the company, I know everything, then you are not the right person for this. And you also need some kind of, you know, emotional intelligence. This is about people. I mean, you know, it's people, 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 people. You spend most of your time about people. So you need to motivate them. You need to inspire them. You need to be persuasive. And you have to be really people-oriented. So these are people that have a certain set of characteristics that you should try to focus on when you recruit them or when you build a team. What do we do and why? So in the end, the whole construct, it's a system. The company, it's a system. Everything you build is a system. And you have to manage the system. You have to manage the whole. Otherwise, it will not manage itself. So what do we do at the Agile Center of Excellence? So we're involved in portfolio management. So how we link strategy to portfolio. And you will see later on how we manage the flow of work at portfolio level. So we're also involved in program and team management. So program execution, so facilitating program execution, coaching and training teams, and also tooling and Obeya Room. Obeya Room will show you later on what it is and how it looks like. And also metrics, financials, measurements. I mean, measuring absolutely everything to help coaching and to help understand what's the impact of everything. So that's more or less the scope of the Agile Center of Excellence. So which people you have there? So you have, you need a head of Agile, whatever. You have a set of Agile coaches who are doing Scrum, scaling, communities of practice, so you have to build communities of practice, and we also have product owners there. I mean, why? Because we believe that when you have, at content level, I mean, when you're trying to really kind of set a practice where you want to standardize something to a certain level, of course you give flexibility, but in the end, you can put all the tools and processes. If people will not follow, people not understand, if people do not prioritize, maybe it doesn't work. So everything from portfolio to team, in terms of methods, it's our team. And we also do a lot of trainings. So some of them, we do them internally. Some others, we externalize. So for example, for scaling, you do lots of trainings if you need people to be trained. You have to train Scrum Masters, etc. And for this, you really need a set of people. And you know, I'm lucky that I have an excellent team of people that really can fulfill all these things. So it's part of the key success. I mean, if you don't have a good team, you don't have power to really drive it. So that's a key part of it. And now we move on to, okay, so I explained, okay, who's the company? More or less, what was the transformation journey and the structure, and who we are as a team. And now we get into more specifics of portfolio and program management. So how we link strategy to execution. So we have roadmaps, and you can have roadmaps at portfolio level, you can have roadmaps at program level, and that's basically how you link it. So every year, probably most of the companies, you have a forecast. You do financials. Okay, where do we want to be in 3 years' time? What's the strategy for the future? So that's our strategic roadmap. So what's the next 3 years? What are the themes? So themes, basically we have strategic categories. So those strategic categories can be tribes. So one tribe is one strategic category, but you could have mandatory initiatives as another strategic category. And then within those strategic categories, you have themes. Themes are long-lived changes. So things that you might need 3-4 years to execute. And within themes, you have epics. So we have this hierarchy at portfolio level. So epics are part of themes. Themes are part of categories. So one category can have several themes. Every theme can have several epics. And why we do this? Because we basically allocate these responsibilities either to one team, to one tribe, or whatever. So you need, I mean, in our case, we need this kind of level of hierarchy to link it. And also performance management. So once you have these themes, you can say, okay, this is our baseline. This is every one of those colors could be what's the contribution of that tribe, of that theme, in terms of financials to the company. So how we are linking financially the theme. So that's road mapping for execution. This is financials. And then, as I mentioned before, you have the tribe. You give them this, and guys, this is what you have to deliver. These are the people. And just do it. So we're using 3 layers of backlog items. So at portfolio level, we have epics, which means things that are kind of big enough to be delivered over a period of time. Every epic is breakdown into features, which is something we manage at program level, and features are breaking down into stories, which is what we do at team level. So this is the way we approach backlogs. And epics are part of a theme, are part of a strategic initiative. What's an epic? It's basically the description and justification of a business need. So for this, we do a business case. Okay, every time you have a new idea, that's a new epic. So this is an example of a template, but in the end, something like, okay, who's going to be the epic owner? What's the hypothesis? I mean, what I'm trying to achieve, what's the benefit? How much money do I need to invest in terms of CapEx and OpEx? What set of features I'm going to deliver as part of these epics? If I have 10 features, how many of those features are MVP or additional features? More or less, when it's going to enter the Kanban system, and later on I will show you a portfolio Kanban, and more or less, what's the estimation of getting it out in terms of increments of time, yeah? So to more or less, and this is just to justify, I mean, to have a conversation, because in the end you have to prioritize, and you have 200 epics, and you don't have capacity for all of them, which one are you going to do? You have to rely on this. And then we have something called portfolio Kanban. This is to visualize the flow of epics. So basically, all the epics, you will have upstream and downstream. So you define something, you review it, you analyze it, and then you approve it. You approve it means that, okay, we like that business case. Let's move on. And then you go to execution. But going to execution doesn't mean like in the past, guys, I have this idea, do it. And you go to the teams and start working on that. No. It means that, okay, when I have capacity, you will start executing it. But for the time being, you go to backlog. Yeah? So this is to manage the flow of epics. And that's our portfolio Kanban. And then, as I mentioned before, we have features. So this is an example from our Jira of a feature. But, okay, so you link them to epics. So every epic will have several features. And then you describe, okay, what is it about? What's the intended functionality of this? What is the scope? What's the benefit? I mean, in the end, if you are doing a feature or if you are doing an epic, it has to have some benefits. Otherwise, why do it? And who are the teams that are going to execute? So we have something called the leading team. So the leading team is the one driving the execution, but you also have teams involved. So if you have dependencies, who is linked with you? And also run. So you have squads or Scrum teams and Kanban teams. So for every feature we map, you are leading. You also have to work with 2 Scrum teams and with 5 departments. And everything has to be here. Because that's more or less a high-level understanding of, okay, what needs to be done for this? And this is something that you need to do during the upstream part of the Kanban. So features have to be ready. So by the time you plan them, you more or less have an understanding of who's going to be involved. Doesn't mean it's perfect. It doesn't mean that sometimes you might pop up with new dependencies, but this is part of the upstream part work of the program Kanban. And also prioritization based on cost of delay, or comparing this in terms of relative importance with other features. And for that, we have another Kanban, which is the program Kanban. And you have the upstream part, which is all this part of where you're preparing the features, then you plan, and then you go to execution. Yeah? So it's another level, at program level, where we do the execution. And then people, if you have been involved in portfolio management, this is the key. For portfolio management, every company, demand capacity. We always have more work than capacity. So how you make sure that more or less this is matched? Yeah? Because you have to match it somehow. Otherwise, okay, you have WIP limits. You can work with WIP limits. But if you work on change, okay, knowing the amount of WIP limits you have at program level, it will take time because features will be different. And then in Agile teams, Scrum teams, you're still working with points. So how you match capacity? So in the past, what you did is, okay, we have a project with deliverables and everything goes to a team. If you need more capacity, you put more people. If you need less capacity, you take out people. The way we do it now, it's okay, you have something, you divide it in features, and then you move work to teams. So you need to understand, okay, what's the capacity of those teams? How much work I'm going to put in those teams to make sure that the capacity and the work I'm putting them works. So how doing this? For the backlog, first, you need to prioritize to make sure you know which features you're going to put in the teams, and then size them. So in our case, we have product owners. Product owner is in charge of defining the product, so also the product management of it, so features, etc. So, okay, you know what's your goal, or what's your intended path. So you have to come up with a set of features that you consider are the most important. And then you have to prioritize them. And for that, we use cost of delay. This is weighted shortage of first. So more or less, basically the concept is, okay, you have 10 things, compare one to another in terms of importance to make sure that you prioritize. And then at program level, you could have just a big program, and then you have one people doing this, and you will have a rank of things. In our case, since we are smaller, you have a set of people who are delivering a set of themes. So in the end, we end up with a program backlog, which is a set of themes features. So basically, you have to come up with this. And we also have something called tribe lead. So you have a tribe, there's someone in charge of that. So that's a tribe lead. So POs have to basically convince the tribe lead that according to the strategy he defined, according to the metrics, these features are going to deliver value. And that in terms of execution, now, as of today, they are most important ones. So that's part of the prioritization process to prepare the backlog during the Kanban. So you do it here. This is part of the process, defining the features, having the conversations with all the team, identifying all the dependencies. This is part of that process, and it's something that you do all along the time. So it's not like one day workshop and that's it. And then you saw before that we identify per feature who leads, who acts as a team. So for every feature, we have this. So feature 1, it's delivered by squad 1 to 3, or 1 to whatever. And then you have the capacity of every team. And this is, every team is different, so you have to define what's available capacity. And you have to match. In the end, if you are team A, and maybe you have to leave 2 features, but you also have to act as dependency of 3 others. So you have to have an understanding of, okay, all that work, how much points you have, and can you deliver? Because otherwise you might say, okay, I can execute my feature, but I have no capacity for your dependency. But maybe that feature, maybe you don't care, but that feature, it's more important for the other, and the tribe lead will say, no, you have to focus on the dependency because that's key. So you have to make sure you have to execute. So this is part of the process to do this. And then you will say, what a philosophical, theoretical construct, movie, or in Spanish, vaya milonga que me está contando este tío. So it's like, okay, how we do this? Examples. So for example, we do a planning every 3 months where we basically go through a 2-day session where we put everybody in a room with all these features and we say, guys, okay, these are the features for the next 3 months. You have to break out and plan everything in sprints and make sure that you build out all the dependencies. Yeah? So at the end of day 1, you will see like, okay, is this what we want? Is there something we cannot deliver? What needs to be adjusted? And the second day, the tribe leads will say, okay, now, if this feature you cannot deliver, but I want you to deliver this. So maybe you have to take out something. And then you will, in the end, do a vote. So all the people will say, we feel confident about this. And that's what you're going to execute for the next three months. And basically, whatever you plan that day is what goes here. So you go to downstream execution of program. You do the planning, you execute. Yeah. And then this is an example. So you have, themes and features in the end will help you to define how much effort you're going to focus on several themes. So I'm spending 30% of my time delivering this, or 30% of my time delivering that. Yeah. So you also, in the planning process, it's like this is the split of what we're going to plan. And this is something we give to every team, and they have it in the tables, and they have it in Jira. So every feature with all the teams, in yellow, who's leading, in red, who's dependency, for Scrum or for Kanban. So if the feature 1, you need legal, it's there. Legal knows they need to help you. Yeah? So basically, before we do the PI planning, the planning process, you have this, which is the outcome of all the preparation. So during the pre-and process, basically, you have to plan everything. You have to take care of dependencies. So if you are leading a feature, you have to plan your feature and the dependencies. And then, in the end you end up with objectives. So in the end, it's, okay, these features, what's the value? And the value will be voted by the management team. So this product is going to bring us 10 points of value. And that's the value you're going to measure at the end of the 3 months when you will demo everything, and they will say, okay, this is what we built according to what we planned. So do we make the objective, yes or no? Yeah? And basically, that's part of the planning process. For every sprint, every board, they will have a physical paper for every sprint where they put user stories, tasks, etc. So they plan features, they have planning tasks and things for one, and also objectives. So this is more or less what we give them. How it looks like in real. So this is for April, yeah, April this year. This is at the end of day one. So you see, it's a big room, 100 people. You cannot see them, and per team, this is the area of one team. This is the area of another team. This is each one of these areas. You see all the sprints plus objectives, etc. So you can have multiple teams planning at the same time. Yeah. And then, okay, just to wrap up quickly, all the tooling and things that we have behind this, and visualization. So, in the end, you need to visualize, you need tooling, you need to measure, you need to put all this in place. This is our portfolio Kanban in physical. So each one of those cards is an epic. That's a Kanban, you have whip limits. The colors are the themes. So you can see visually how many epics I have for theme yellow, or how many epics I have for theme green. Whatever it is, we know it. Yeah, you should know it. In the end, you see the effort and you see how you're executing. And this is our Jira, so it's replicated. So whatever we have in our portfolio Kanban, it's here. You will measure it. This is our program Kanban and our program board. So this is in our Aveya room. We have a big room full of these things. You see our upstream Kanban for the next PI. So this is just the other day. So this is kind of empty because the teams are now working on preparing all the features for the next PI. These are the features in execution, and this is all the teams, all the sprints, and all the dependencies with Scrum teams and Run teams. So this is the output of the planning process. This is where we do a weekly meeting where we sync all the teams to have a follow-up on how we're doing. So it's not that you plan, but every week you have to follow the execution of it. And this, it's our program Kanban in Jira and our program board in Jira. So we have all the features linked with all the dependencies. Everything is, you cannot scroll down, but you can see that more or less this is big. So you see everything. And not only that, but if you are a department, you are legal, you can go and filter, and you can say, what are my features? And you see your features. If you are, I don't know what, you can see everything because you have views customized per area. So that's a replica of our physical program board. If we do the follow-up and we move something, we move it in digital. This is a Scrum Teams. So this is a physical board of one of the teams. This is the Kanban, the Scrum, the Kanban for the current sprint for this Scrum team. Yeah, so every Scrum team, they have physical and digital. Kanban teams, and this is from one of our leading Kanban teams that Theodora was mentioning before. Hello. And this is their Kanban. So it's a big wall. I mean, we have to put like this. So this is the Kanban, and it's operations. This is an operations department doing Kanban and Jira. So everything replicated with metrics, etc. And then what else do we have? Metrics. So we have dashboards for every team. We also have capacity, how much capacity they have in features and run, because our Scrum teams, they also do maintenance. So you build a product, and then in the future you maintain it, because that's the optimal way to optimize it. So how much time are you spending in run? How much time are you spending in features for your capacity? This is your forecast. This is your actual. So we measure how much time you're going to forecast for the next upcoming program increment and the actual. So over time, teams get better info. So, and you can see team by team. This is in Power BI. So yeah, you can see it. Features, so you can have a forecast of features. You can see how many story points did I estimate the feature before planning. And in real time, this is how many user stories you have in Jira in real time. Yeah? And maturity scan. So we also have maturity scans per team, how mature you are. This is also our coaches. They do team maturity scans every month. So the idea is not to punish teams. The idea is like, okay, guys, how good are you doing that? How can I help you? And this is month by month, we get a photo, a snapshot per team of how good you are in values, in roles and events. And this is a part of a process. So this is something like you can do, choose whatever tooling you want. Jira works. The guys at Dacer are nice, so they help us with this. So yeah, yes. And then you also have a lot of tooling, but you need people in the company because in the end, our coaches are internal. So everything you see here is done by internal people. We didn't, with the help of consultants for specifics, because we are not experts in the tool, but the whole construction, the follow-up, making sure that this works, it's done by our internal coaches team. So the conclusion, I'm going fast. So the conclusion is that, in Agile we work and everybody tells you, sprints. This is like a marathon. This is not something you're gonna do in 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month or 2 months. This is a marathon, and in the process, you will find a lot of people that you need to spend time with them, that they're gonna resist change, that they're gonna be tired. Sometimes even yourself, like after a year, it's like, should I give up? So even yourself, like leading the change, you really have to have a lot of resistance because it's complex. It's about people. It's about putting something, testing if it works. If not, going back and improving it. But my key message is that just go and do not despair, because in the end, if you spend time and it's not a never-ending journey, but in the end, if you spend time, it can be done. Thank you.